Hello creatives, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be diving into Illustrator on the iPad. I did a video a few months ago about the pen tool. It was this video right here. It was called Pen Tool, the Basics, and I went through everything to deal with the pen tool. How to use it, how to start, how to get started, how to create shapes, and how to close them. We're going to take those same skills and apply them to create a logo, a very simple one for a botanical garden. If you guys like these types of videos, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I know I have a lot of new people here. Hi, my name is Angela. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. I like to help others build their skills in those areas, especially with the pen tool. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's dive in to Illustrator. I have it open right here. I have a very small 500 pixel by 500 pixel artboard, a 300 DPI file because we are working in the RGB color mode because this is not going to be printed, it's only going to be digital. We are going to be creating an adorable little logo for the botanical garden. If you didn't watch my previous video, I'm going to go over how to create particularly two shapes, how to start them, how to close them, and working with paths, and then we're going to go into creating the logo. It's going to be a very simple logo. It's not going to be in color. It's going to be black and white just to get started. Let's dive in here. I'm going to zoom in quite a bit here. Add some layers. So you have these icons over here on the right, and then you also have some tools icons over here on the left. We are automatically defaulted to the selection tool, which is this one here. And then the layers panel is the first icon on the right toolbar. If you tap it with your Apple Pencil, you can see that it says layer 1. So I'm going to just double tap on layer 1, the name, and I'm going to rename it guide. And then we're going to place some shapes just to help us get started and be our guide. You can also hide the layers panel by tapping the layer icon. So show, hide, show, hide. So we go over here to the left toolbar, and in the middle of the left toolbar there is a square shape. It's defaulted to square. Tap on that, and we're going to draw a square shape with our pen tool here. To create a perfect square, iPad is very intuitive. Our shape tool is still selected because it's highlighted in blue. We're going to hold down this touch selector. You see this little circle touch selector down here? You're going to take your finger, you're just going to press and hold while you tap and drag on the screen to create a perfectly constrained proportioned square. I think one of my newest subscribers, I think your name was Devin, they asked for a more in-depth way of how to handle certain things like this, so I figured I'd go over it. Alright, now we have a perfect constrained square. Let me increase our stroke. You can always see the fill and stroke color over here on the left toolbar, and it's always defaulted to white and black. To be able to change your stroke weight, you're going to go to the properties icon, which is showcased on the right toolbar by some sliders. We call them sliders. And tap that. You see that our fill is white and our stroke is black, and then we also have blend modes. If you scroll down by tapping and dragging with your pen tool, there is a little section called stroke down here. There is the type of stroke it is, and then right next to that is points. That's the thickness of your stroke. So I'm going to tap into there. I'm going to set it at 3. Below that, there is the type of stroke. So this type of stroke adds stroke weight to the inside and the outside of the line path that you created, or that is created by the shape tool. And that is our guided square. If you don't know how to move your artboard, this is called the artboard, the space that you're working on. If you don't know how to move the artboard around like I'm doing, you just take 2 fingers, hold down on the screen, and move your fingers on the screen while your 2 fingers are both on the screen at the same time. And if you want to zoom in, tap with 2 fingers and spread your fingers apart. So it's like a reverse pinch, if you will. So I'm just going to move it over here so you can see what color I choose. To change your stroke color, you just tap the stroke color over here on the left toolbar, And I'm going to change it to this nice soft blue. These swatches are defaulted, so you will always see these main swatches as default in your program. So I'm just going to choose the default one. Go back to our selection tool, the first icon over here on the left toolbar. Double tap to deselect the shape. Anywhere on the artboard, it does not matter. And now we have created a guide. So let's go back into our layers panel by tapping it. This is our guide. Let's go ahead and press this plus icon in the layers panel, and it gives us another layer. Now this layer we're going to name logo. If you double tap on the layer name, layer 2, call it logo. That way we know exactly where we're going and what's on what layer. It's very important, especially when you're dealing with multi-faceted designs, especially when you get into a lot of illustration. You're going to need a lot of layers, and you're going to need to name them so you don't get lost. Choose that guide layer again, and now when you tap a layer, it selects everything on the layer, which is very, very handy. So we're going to lock the guide by choosing the little lock icon here in a light gray color. So if you tap the lock icon, it'll say locked, and you cannot move anything or touch anything on that layer that's locked, which is great because we don't want to move our guides, we just want to use them. Now we are on layer logo. Let's create another layer in between for practice. You'll always know which layer is selected because it'll be highlighted in that same blue color as all of your icons are. So we're going to work on the practice layer. Let's go ahead and zoom in here by doing a reverse pinch with our fingers on the screen. Choose our stroke color. We're just going to choose black for now. Go ahead and tap your stroke color wheel here. Choose the default black swatch there. Tap again to make it go away. And then we're going to select our pen tool. Now for the pen tool, in my other video, I did mention that there are two gesture inputs. I call them gesture inputs. There are two gesture inputs that you can apply here. There is what I call blunt endpoints or corner points. Some people call them different things, but they're either corner points or blunt endpoints, or there are smooth endpoints, or what I call flexible endpoints. I'm going to show you the difference right now. So with this square, I'm going to use corner points or blunt endpoints. What that means is that when you tap on the screen with your pen tool, I'm going to start at a corner, I'm going to tap, and it creates an end point or an anchor point. Again, people call it different things. So it's either anchor point or end point. I call it an end point because it's the beginning and end of a line. You may not be able to see it, it's really tiny, it's just a blue dot. The pen tool is kind of like working with a pen, but instead of drawing like you normally would, you're just connecting dots, but you won't see the path until you place another point. So I'm going to place another endpoint at this corner down here, and then you see the path just pops up automatically. So it's literally like connecting the dots, but the only thing you have to do is place the dots. Let's go ahead and place the dots, or our endpoints, at each corner. And you just tap, 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 tap on each corner. To close the shape for a square, as I just did there, tap on the first original endpoint you created. It closes the shape. And the only way to know that you closed the shape, because sometimes we miss, it does happen, choose our fill color, which is null at the moment, and let's just choose a color. Let's just choose green. There we go. When your shape is closed, the fill color will be perfect like this. If you missed the endpoint and your shape is not fully closed, you'll have colors like shooting across your artboard, and it's kind of cool, but it's not what you want. Make sure you are very accurate with closing your shapes by just tapping on the original endpoint you created. And you just created your first shape, a square. Okay, double tap again to deselect. Let's move on over here to the circle, or the ellipse, which is a little bit more tricky. Okay, so an ellipse. An ellipse does not have sides or points, like corner points like a square does. So we're going to use more smooth points or flexible endpoints, if you will. We're going to choose our pen tool, make sure our fill is null, and make sure our stroke is black so that we can see it. Flexible or smooth endpoints. Endpoint with two handles, so that way we can move the angle. I'll show you. I usually start at the top or on the right side. There are no sides in circles, but bear with me. So I'm going to start at the top, tap and drag on the screen. You see this blue highlighted section here with 0 degrees? That's what you want. You want 0 degrees because you want it to be perfectly level. I'm just going to pull quite a bit. There we go. So there's one endpoint, one smooth point, or one flexible endpoint with 2 handles with handle points on either end. So that's going to be important, and I'll show you why. Let's move over here to the right, tap and drag. There's our path that pops up to help us. And you're going to drag this handle down until this curve matches up with our guideline, just like so. And that degrees is going to be 0 because you want it to be perfectly in line. Let go. And we're going to move down. And you want to try to line up your points so that way they are perfectly even. It's pretty important, especially if you're going to do a lot of complex shapes when you're illustrating. You always want to make sure that your points line up with each other as much as possible. It's not always possible, but as much as possible. So we're going to go down here, tap and drag on the screen, and then we're going to drag this handle over at 0 degrees to align this new path that we're creating to the guide line that is now in blue behind us. And now let's make our final flexible endpoint or smooth endpoint here. I'm just going to visually line it up with my eyes. Over here on the left, tap and drag. And then to close the circle shape, you're going to tap and drag on that first original endpoint here at the top. Tap and drag. There we go. Now, as you can see here, it's not perfectly aligned. And here, it's not perfectly aligned. So I'm going to show you how to fix it. It's okay if you don't get it right on the first try. It's actually pretty difficult to get it right on the first try. So we have the pen tool selected right now. In order to move and adjust points, you're going to need your direct selection tool, which is going to be the second icon here. Choose a endpoint. Let's choose this one. By tapping it, it's active because it's full of blue. And we're going to tap and drag it into place. And by into place, I mean we're going to cover the blue guideline, just like so. Over here, I realized that my handle, the curve degree of my path, is not in line with the guide. So you tap to activate a handle point, which is there, and it fills in blue. You're going to tap and drag up at 0 degrees and release, and it gets it pretty close. Tap out anywhere on the artboard to deselect the shape. Zoom out by pinching our fingers together on the screen. You just created a square and a circle. This is going to be very handy for when we create our logo. So those are the types of endpoints that you can use with the pen tool. Let's take it and create a logo for our botanical garden. I'm going to open up our layers panel by tapping on it. Let's tap on our logo layer. Hide the layers panel by clicking the icon. I want to add some text to this. We're not going to really mess with text too much, but there is a text icon over on the left toolbar right over here below the shape icon. So let's tap that. Let's tap and drag on the artboard. And of course, Lorem Ipsum pops up. When you release, you're going to see that the properties panel pops up and gives you a whole bunch of choices. And we're going to create our lily logo for this botanical garden. Some of you may not be comfortable just freehanding this from memory, so I do have a photo that we can work from. To import a photo, choose this icon over here that kind of looks like a landscape photo. It's the last icon over here on the left toolbar just above your fill color. Tap on that. We're going to choose photos, and I'm going to choose one that I have, and my photo pops up. All right, this is quite a large photo, so we're going to just tap on it and move it down. It is on our guide layer here. I'm going to select that image. We are going to go to the properties panel. We're going to take the opacity down here, down to about 50, maybe not 50%. I'm going to take it down to 70%, just so we can still see where we're going. Let's tap on the layers panel icon And we're going to lock the guide layer once again, so that way we don't select it by accident, because it is quite annoying every time you want to select something and you select the wrong thing. Let's go back to our logo layer by tapping it. Of course, everything on the layer will be selected. Double tap out onto the artboard to deselect it. Hide the docket. It's called a docket. I call it a docket. Let's zoom in. And now we have a cute little photo to work from to create our logo. Just like we did up here with our corner points or blunt endpoints and our flexible endpoints or smooth endpoints, we're going to apply those skills right here onto this lily for Lily's Botanicals. Make sure that we have some things set up first. Over here in default for fill and stroke, the stroke is now null and the fill is black because when we selected our layers panel, it selected our font here, which is filled with black and has no stroke. So in order to reverse that, there's a really handy dandy icon right here that has two opposing arrows going in like opposite directions. We're going to tap on that, and it moves whatever's in the fill to the stroke and whatever's in the stroke to the fill. Very handy. Choose our pen tool. Now lilies have an overall shape. It's kind of like a half circle or like a dome. So we're going to keep that in mind as we are illustrating these petals. I'm going to start with an easy one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further, and I'm going to start on this one over here. I will have this photo for you guys down in the description box down below, so that way you can follow along if you would like to. Tap and drag, which is going to be a smooth endpoint or a flexible endpoint. I'm going to start with that one. I'm going to get the overall shape of this. I'm going to tap and drag where I think is going to be the center center of it, making sure my degree angle is 0. I'm going to tap and drag significantly just there. And then I'm going to follow the line of this petal over here, this one. It's not going to be completely accurate, but that's okay. I'm going to tap and drag again towards the end here, making sure my degree angle is 0. I'm going to release my Apple Pencil from the screen, and we have our first path. I did not go over this earlier, but if you want to change direction without using a blunt endpoint or a corner point, choose that selector again, this touch selector right over here. We're going to take our finger, press and hold on the touch selector till it becomes bigger. Select your handle point on the endpoint we just created. Tap on it, it's going to fill with blue. And we're going to break a handle. Breaking a handle means you're going to take that handle, break it to change directions. Tap and drag it over. I'm going to tap it and drag it. See, it says break tangent at the top there. I'm going to take it and drag it in a cute angle like that. And then you can release it, and you can release the touch selector over here. And you have broken your first handle. Let's go over here to where this kind of meets up as like a junction. Tap and drag here. Follow the curvature line of the petal. Now we're going to break a handle again. Take your finger, tap and hold on that touch selector over here. Tap the end point of the handle that we just created and drag it to break it. It's going to be an even tighter acute angle here. Release with your pen tool and release your finger from the touch selector. And then we're going to go over here to this petal. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of petals. I'm going to do just a few because there's a lot of petals to this, and for logos you want to keep them quite simplified. Tap and drag over here. Now typically you want your angle degrees of your handles to be 0, but for this, since lilies are very like fluid and they have lots of curves to them, I'm going to do an angle of about 45 degrees. Just to add some more curvature and fluidity for my paths. I am not making my handles super long because when you make your handles super long, you're just creating more work for yourself. I typically like to keep my handles quite short and then lengthen them later with that point selection tool much later to like finish up my shape. So I will show you guys that once we are done making our paths. If you ever have an instance where you accidentally deselect your shape and your path is not complete, go to your direct selection tool, which is the first icon on the left toolbar. Tap on the line anywhere that you created, and then go back into your pen tool icon on the left toolbar, tap that. All your points will be active. Well, they'll be live. They won't be active. They'll be live. So you can see where all your points are and your paths. Your paths will be outlined in red. Touch that endpoint we ended off with. It won't create a second point. It'll just activate the point. Go ahead and take your finger, press and hold on that touch selector over here. Tap on the endpoint of that handle. Tap and drag to break the handle. I just closed the shape by tapping on that original endpoint that I created and dragging to close the shape. I'm going to go into the properties panel like we did before, and I'm just going to increase the stroke to 3 points just so you guys can see it a bit better. Double tap to deselect out, and this is kind of what I ended up with. Yours can look completely different, and that's completely okay. It's up to, you know, your creative liberty. I have this overall shape here. Tap that layer icon. Let's go ahead and hide our guide. There's an eye icon in the layers panel, and it just shows and hides whatever layer you select that eye icon on. Now I'm gonna add a few more petals to make it look more like a lily, but this is the overall shape that I am starting out with. Now it looks kind of uneven, to say the least. So I'm going to add another petal over here. I'm going to select the shape, and then I'm going to show you how to add excess points. So let's select our pen tool. All the points are going to be highlighted. To add any extra points to an already closed shape, you tap anywhere you want the point to be on the path line. So I'm going to tap about there, and then that creates a new point. I'm going to do 2 more points, 1 and 2, within that same area, so that way you can have a full extra petal shape. For that first point that we created, let me zoom in here for you guys. For that first point I created here, I'm going to move from the pen tool to that point selection tool, that second tool in the toolbar. I'm going to select that. Select our point that we first created, which is this one, and we're going to break a handle. The path follows the direction that I pull the handle. You see that? And now we're going to touch this up a bit more. When your handles are too close to each other, like so, it creates a straight, blunt edge endpoint here. If you move the angle of your handles out more, it gives you like this nice pointed edge on the endpoint here. And all we're doing is we're just tapping and dragging, and tapping and dragging, and tapping and dragging endpoints and handle points. That's basically all this is. Okay, that's looking a lot better. Now there is something a little strange going on right here that I don't want to be there, so I just want to make this into one petal. So I'm going to show you how to delete points. To delete points, let's zoom in by reverse pinching our fingers on the screen. My point selection tool is selected. Tap on the path so that we can see where we are. And then there is a quick selection toolbar that pops up every time you're messing with points here. Now, I did not go over this earlier, so I'm going to show you how to delete points without breaking your path. This point here is the one that activated when I selected the path, and that's actually the point that I want to delete. So instead of pressing the trash can, which breaks the path, you can double tap the screen with 2 fingers. It undoes what you just did. So that point is still selected. Instead of pressing the trash can to break the path apart, I'm going to keep the path joined. You're going to press this X icon here, and it takes the point away without breaking the path. The path is still intact. So I'm going to do that again with this point here. I'm going to select that point, press the X in the quick selection pop-up menu toolbar here, and it takes the point away without breaking the path. It is the most handy thing ever that they made for Illustrator on the iPad. It is the best thing ever. I'm going to pull this point over to where it looks like it's more in line. Alright, let's see what this is looking like. That's looking pretty good. I did mess up a little bit here, so let's fix that. Okay, so now we have something that looks like this. I'm going to add 2 more petals to this. We're going to unhide our guide layer by pressing that eye icon, and our photo comes back. Let's go ahead and hide our layer panel. I'm going to choose 2 petals to add to this, just to give us more of a visual that this is a lily. We're going to use 4 points for this one. So I'm going to choose this petal right here, and I'm going to create that shape. And now to save ourselves some time, we can duplicate this shape that we created here. Let's choose our select tool, which is the first icon in the left toolbar. Select that shape. The quick selection toolbar menu pops up right here. There is an icon that it looks like 2 pages with a plus sign. I'm going to tap on that and it says duplicated. Tap and drag that and we have our second shape here. Over here into the align icon here underneath the scissors, it looks like a bar graph almost. So you tap on that and then there is where you can flip it. So you see there's this flip area here. You can flip it horizontally. Literally just flips it like a page, which is very, very handy. So now I'm going to modify this one. I just went around and modified my points quite a bit. When it comes to logos, we can keep the shape, the overall shape of it, quite simple, and then we can add more depth to it by adding color. But you really want to keep it more simplistic. I'm going to make these points touch here, just because this looks kind of awkward that it's not a complete closed shape. I can even make this a combined shape. To make a combined shape, this is a little bit more advanced, but to make a combined shape, there is these 2 pages that look like they're combining into each other. This icon here on the right toolbar, it's the 4th one down. Select that, combine the shapes, convert it to a path, so it's now converted to a new path. I'm going to zoom all the way in so you guys can see. And what that did is it took the 2 separate shapes, it morphed them together, and it made a new path out of those 2 morphed together shapes. So you have a little craziness going on down here. Let's choose our point selection tool. Just move the points. And you can zoom in as far as you need to. Like for this little section here, I'm gonna get rid of a lot of these points because we don't need them. We're zoomed into 15,000%. Like it goes a little nuts about how far in you can zoom. Now, there's one thing I did not go over, closed paths and open paths. For these shapes here, I'll select them for you. For these 2 here, these are open paths. So that means that they are paths that I have not closed by selecting the original endpoint to close the shape. So with these, I'm going to leave them open, mainly because this logo icon I'm not going to add color to. I'm going to extend the points on this and leave the path open. There are instances where you want to leave your paths open or have them closed. Open paths, pretty bold. It's very simplistic, it's very minimalistic, but it gives you some nice effects when it comes to logo design and like icon design and such like that. Because when you have icons, not all icons have closed shapes in them, which kind of makes them unique and fascinating. At least to me it does. I'm just creating these petals out of 3 points. You can use more as you go along, but keep in mind that when you're creating logos, especially with the pen tool, you want to simplify your shapes by removing as many points as possible that are unnecessary. There you go, you have your logo. And you can keep messing with this and make it look however you wish, but that is how you take very simple shapes that you create with the pen tool and create logos. So I hope this video helped you guys explore and learn a little bit more about the pen tool and how to create whatever you want with it. If you guys like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to be creating more videos like this one, and I will see you soon, creatives.